Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with beautiful on the inside me, Kevin Day, and him, Liverpool University's rugged and handsome on the outside, Kieran Maguire. How are you, Kieran?
I'm all good, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, raring to go.
Good. I'm glad that you're not falsely modest enough to say I'm not rugged and handsome. Well done. Later in the show, the rugged and handsome Kieran Maguire will be chatting to Tom Denby, who's Norwich City's head of finance. It was a very interesting chat he had too. But before that, some very interesting news stories, Kieran. First of all, UEFA have published a report on pandemic revenue loss, and it's a big number.
Yes, UEFA every year they publish something called the Club Licensing Benchmarking Report, which isn't a page turner. Even I will concede that. But overall, they estimate that the pandemic has cost European football around about €7 billion, and a large slice of that has come from the UK as well. So it's been a tough time, but we're still all there. Gate receipts clearly have been very significantly hit. They're normally around about £1 in every 6, but that's down to 2% during the pandemic. So it has been tough. Broadcasting income held up, which was good. There was a fear that the broadcasters would be demanding lots of rebates, but that's been okay. And also the UEFA competitions themselves. Because we were all in lockdown, we ended up watching the Europa League group matches and the stuff that you'd think twice about. So they've had some quite good viewing figures on those.
And still in Europe, Kieran, some clever person, probably Swiss Ramble, has been crunching the numbers on the net spend by European clubs over the past 10 years and throwing up, and this is going to be the word of the day, some interesting stats.
Yes, this is actually from Switzerland, but not from the Swiss Ramble himself. It's from something called the CIES Football Observatory, who are a bunch of... Oh, yeah. I'm sure that they must have been down to Parsons Arms on a regular basis getting shedded.
Possibly. There's a couple of strange looking lads with feathers in their hats down the corner of the pub. That might be them, yeah.
Yodeling away. So what they've worked out is the net and the gross spend by football clubs in the 5 big leagues as far as Europe is concerned. So that's England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and France. And the net spend over that period is topped by Manchester United, which goes against sort of the common narrative. Lots of United fans have felt that they've been marginalised at their club because Chelsea are being underwritten by Roman Abramovich, Manchester City are being underwritten by Sheikh Mansour. But actually, it's United who have topped this table. They're number one, followed by City, then thirdly PSG. And I think part of the reason for that is many other clubs who you consider to be big clubs, not only have they spent a lot of money, but they've generated a lot of money from player sales as well. And United here haven't really performed particularly well. So there's been lots of players who have come and then have gone for significantly lower fees. And they've not necessarily had players coming through the development route, which have generated a lot of money for United. So it sort of dispels the myth that Manchester United are not winning trophies due to a lack of cash. It could be argued that the cash has not been spent well, but I'll leave that for United fans and non-United fans to discuss.
Yeah, as you know, Kieran, the numbers themselves, well, fascinating, obviously. It's the words that interest me. So I just got baffled by why we say crunching the numbers. And I did a bit of research. Still, no one can seem to agree why we use that phrase. Even the Cambridge Dictionary. Obviously, I'm not looking at the Oxford Dictionary after the argument we had about defining the word ball. I don't care what you say, Oxford. A rugby ball's not a ball, but no one can seem to agree when or where we started crunching numbers. Talking of Manchester United, and as I say, the word interesting is the word of the day. Manchester United have an interesting message for season ticket holders yesterday.
It's either turn up or ship out, effectively. What Manchester United have said, and this is in the light of significant numbers of empty seats at some recent home matches. There's been up to 7,000 empty seats being seen at Old Trafford, which is surprising. Is that they're going to say to season ticket holders, you must fill the seat at least 10 times every season. Now, I've got a lot of sympathy for United fans here, and I'm not going to go down the rather hackneyed route of they're all coming from Guildford, all that type of nonsense. Because I played for Trafford Cricket Club for 30 years. Manchester United is a big club in Manchester, so you can forget all of that nonsense.
Of course, yeah.
And what they've said is if you can't use the seat, then by all means transfer it to a friend. Now, I'm hoping they're going to go down the route that there's going to be no charge for this, because that would be harsh. But United, and I think this is from the club's point of view, if people turn up, they're more likely to go and buy burgers and merchandise. So, as long as the ticket's being used, and it is frustrating, I guess, from the club's point of view, given that they could sell the tickets elsewhere. There's always a demand for Manchester United tickets. But again, it brings into focus that if you are a Manchester United fan, you are effectively expected to, every time that there is a home match, you buy the ticket in good faith at the start of the season, and you now have to leave Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon, Saturday evening, Sunday and Monday, all free in your diary in order to guarantee that you attend every match. I just don't think that's fair. It's unrealistic. It wouldn't happen in any other organisation. If you or I book a restaurant for a meal on a Saturday night, the restaurant doesn't phone you up the week beforehand and say, "I think we have to go and shift you around. Turn up on Friday night or turn up at Sunday at 12:30, and if you don't, we're going to charge you." That's absolutely ludicrous. So we've had this discussion before that. This is all being driven by the broadcasters, and what the broadcasters have brought to football is fantastic. First of all, the quality of the broadcast product, I think, is absolutely superb. But it's a huge inconvenience to fans, and we are effectively just expected to acquiesce with regards to the demands of broadcasters. So there is a simple solution. The fixtures are announced normally. Fixtures for TV are normally announced sort of 6 to 8 weeks before the matches take place. And again, sympathy for the broadcasters. They want a story for the matches, so therefore they want to leave it as late as possible. Why not? They make that announcement, and then, and this is something the independent regulator could perhaps adjudicate on, or the Premier League could make a magnanimous decision themselves and say, you've now got 14 days. If you can't attend the match, you're right. We will move heaven and earth to attend the matches, because you support Palace, I support Brighton. We want to see our teams. But it could be that we booked a trip to the theatre. It could be that we've got relatives coming down on the Sunday, or something else has happened. So you've then got 14 days to request a rebate, a refund on that ticket, allowing the club another 4 to 6 weeks in which to sell your ticket. Everybody wins. The seat gets filled. The fan is not being shafted. The broadcasters get a fuller audience attending the matches, which looks better from a footballing backdrop, from creating an atmosphere. So why not go ahead with it?
Several things. I don't book restaurants on a Saturday night anymore, because Ali thinks it shows a lack of imagination. Somehow, apparently, going out on a Tuesday is more imaginative than a Saturday. In the same way that we don't go out on Valentine's night. The night after, fine. Valentine's night, no. But there are a lot of Man United fans, for example, Kieran, in Ireland. And there are many countries all around Europe. But we know in Ireland there are a lot of Man United. Some of those people can't afford to come over for every game, all right, for a start off. And then you can say, well, maybe they shouldn't buy a season ticket in the first place. But I don't recall any terms and conditions on a season ticket that says, essentially, you own the seat for the season. If you don't want to turn up, then there are many Palace fans, when Roy Hodgson was admittedly keeping us up, but they didn't want to go because the product, for want of a better word, that they were buying wasn't a particularly good one. If you're only winning three home games a season, then you've got to travel from somewhere quite a long way. There are going to be times when you go, I generally can't be asked. But also, remember, we had this conversation in the last pod, Kieran, that you, and I'm sure many others, you know a chap who's got access to 100 Man United season tickets.
Yeah.
So they're coming from somewhere. And I don't remember looking at a Man United game and noticing huge swathes of empty seats. So I'm interested as to why they're doing it now. And also, sometimes that club, it's the way they handle the message, essentially, isn't it, that kind of puts the hackles up on behalf of other Man United fans, if you like. They probably won't want us getting involved, but it's just like, people have spent a lot of money for season tickets. Don't be telling them that if they're not going to go, they can't keep going. I don't know. Another United are actually making their fans happier since the recent change of ownership is Newcastle. Newcastle made an application to the Living Wage Foundation to become a living wage employer, which is great. But what does it actually entail? Why do you have to apply to the Living Wage Foundation, Kieran, before you start paying people? Well, can you not just start paying the living wage anyway?
You can start paying it. And I think this is just to get kite marked. So what will happen is the Living Wage Foundation says, can you evidence this? What are your HR policies? But what they don't want to be doing is to be approving somebody, and then you find out that some of the other working conditions at that employer are pretty reprehensible. So they will just do a bit of due diligence before they kite mark it. And there are, I think there's 13, 14 clubs who are already signed up, including, this is where we can be proud of our club. Both Brighton and Palace have done it. FC United of Manchester have quite rightly pointed out that they've done it. Dulwich Hamlet, again, one of our clubs that we admire a lot. So I think this is first of all, it's the right thing to do from Newcastle United, because when the message went out, there were a lot of people going, well, what about workers' rights in Saudi Arabia? Well, Newcastle United can't control this, and ultimately they have done the right thing. You can still say they've done the right thing here and have a sense of unease with regards to certain issues to do with human rights and other things which we would consider to be fair in Saudi Arabia itself, but they are not inextricably linked together. They should be separated. If it means that it's going to be slightly easier for people to pay some of their bills in Newcastle as a result of this decision, then that's the right thing to do. But if Newcastle United are doing it now in 2022, and I say, there's probably about 13, 14 clubs around that are doing it, there's 20 clubs in the Premier League in total.
Yeah.
For the Premier League to not go to its members, or for its members not to just decide to vote, you can make this as part of Premier League rules. If you are a member of the Premier League, then you have to. This is a thing to do, because how else can you justify paying? The average wage for a Premier League footballer is £2.7 million a year, and then to say we're not prepared to pay people £9.90 an hour outside of London, or £11.05 in London. Because we can't afford it is a very difficult position to defend.
Yeah, and of course there are many football fans who are saying, well, this is an empty gesture from Newcastle. Of course they can afford it, regardless of why they've done it. As you say, it is the right thing to do. But also, you can just see by the response of Newcastle fans on social media that they're delighted by this, because again, it underlines the difference. Whatever you feel about the new owners, for Newcastle fans, it underlines the difference between them and Mike Ashley. And Newcastle fans think this is the right thing to do, and it's giving them a little spring in their step, because everyone wants their club to do the right thing. So fair play to them. But also, a story that I understand less is that Newcastle have sold one share in the club for £40 million.
Yeah, this was really weird. This came through last week because Newcastle already have about 133 million ordinary shares in issue. Right. And most of those were sold for 50 pence or low amounts of money. And then last week, something came through on the company's house feed to say it was one single share, and every share is identical. It's a bit like baked beans in a tin. There's the whole thing about shares is that they have equal rights. Just because your share is number 732, it doesn't mean that it's more important or less important than number 733. They're identical assets with identical circumstances. And it's been issued for £40 million, which if you actually then applied to all of the shares in Newcastle, would make Newcastle United worth 20 times that of the USA, which is
Wow.
clearly now. We know the US is going through a few grim times at present, but
Yeah.
it's staggering. So what is the logic behind this? I think it is broadly connected to the fact that the Saudi Arabian Public Investment Fund owns 80% of effectively Newcastle United through a series of other companies. And there's lots of the number of companies involved is crazy. Amanda Staveley owns 10% and the Reuben brothers own 10%. Now, if Newcastle United had issued 40 million shares for £1 each to the Saudi Arabian owners, it would have meant that their investment would have gone from 80% to perhaps 95%. And I think they want, for a variety of reasons, and also be part of the original agreement, that Amanda Staveley and the Reuben brothers keep their 10% stake. So this was a way of getting the money into the club during the transfer window, and Kieran Trippier, Dan Burn, and so on, as well as ensuring that the existing shareholding relationships hold tight.
Yeah, are you still upset about Dan Burn? Because I think Newcastle had a very good transfer window. I know we're not allowed to talk about football. Producer guy gets cross, but they brought in some sensible players, I think. But Dan Burn was a bit of a shock, wasn't
he? Yeah, he's playing the football of his career, and he's been superb for us. He's a Newcastle lad, and I think everybody at the club wishes him he's a great time. He's got a 2.5-year contract there. He will have had a substantial pay rise, and we're sorry to see him go, but he's such a nice guy. You can't have any resentment towards him.
Ah, you think everyone's a nice guy, Kieran. Actually, I don't know. Even as I said that, halfway through that sentence, I realised that wasn't going to sound right. And speaking of which, Mel Morris, our old friend, Mel Morris, the ex-owner of Derby County, issued a lengthy nothing to do with me gov statement last week and has now been invited by the EFL to attend talks with administrators and Middlesbrough and Wickham about trying to prevent Derby going into liquidation. That last sentence sounds a little bit ominous, Kieran, doesn't it?
Yes, it was bizarre to have this announcement from Mel Morris at 6 p.m. I think it was 6 p.m. on Friday.
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that it rambled in places. He firmly places the woes of Derby County at Middlesbrough, at Wycombe Wanderers, at the EFL, and no mention of him running up a £28 million unpaid tax bill with HMRC. That didn't get in the 2,100 words. And this seems strange because ultimately it's the administrators who are now running Derby County Football Club Limited. I think he has perhaps been shocked at the vehemence of Derby fans as more and more things have come to light, and they realise that he perhaps ran them a few stories which they might have swallowed earlier on, but they now realise the nature of his ownership period. Ultimately, the most important thing is that there is a Derby County to support. They've been doing superbly on the pitch. They've just won the last match 3-0, and they are getting closer and closer to getting out of that relegation zone, which, if that is the case, Wayne Rooney should be the manager of the year.
Without a doubt, yeah.
Because working under those circumstances and having the integrity to carry on, he could have jumped ship quite easily, but he's completely committed to the cause, and fair dues to him for that. Negotiation and arbitration is a hell of a lot cheaper. So Mel Morris has said, "I will take on Wickham and Borough." It's a bit sort of I'll see you in the car park routine. But I don't think legally he can do that. I mean, he could certainly underwrite the legal costs of Derby County's administrators. And if he's prepared to do that, which wasn't quite what he said in his press release, then fair play to him. I will give him some of the credit back. But I do think this is more of a public relations exercise. Middlesbrough themselves they've come out fighting. they described some of the comments that have been put out in the public domain recently as scurrilous. They're clearly unhappy, but they've said we are willing to talk. But in order to be willing to talk, you need the other parties to talk too. So it's a nightmare for the EFL. They're trying to gently get the people in a room together, and it shouldn't take long. I mean, even if Mel Morris wants to just join in the conversation from Sandbanks, the most expensive part of the country where he lives, he can just get on a Zoom conversation. So there's no reason why these communications cannot take place at pretty much next to zero notice.
Yeah, I read his statement, and obviously I don't know Mel Morris. It doesn't stop me despising him for what he's done to Derby County and their fans. But there was one bit, and again he comes back to it time and time again, that they didn't take any legal action against QPR. They lost to QPR in the playoffs. QPR got into the Premier League, and it then transpired that was at the end of a 3 or 4 year period when QPR pretty flagrantly breached FFP regulations, and he's basically saying why are Borough and Wickham doing this to us when we didn't do it to QPR? And I almost hate myself for thinking this, Kieran. I mean, I'm hoping you can find a reason to contradict me, but I can kind of see his point really with that one.
Yeah, but remember, he was not in charge of Derby County. He did not own the club in 2014. So, and he's had 8 years in which to go and lodge a complaint if he felt the club was. So I think this is whataboutery.
Right.
Nobody wants football merit decisions. And we've discussed this at length. I'm completely opposed to points deductions.
I agree.
Or anything apart from the most extenuating, extreme of circumstances. And there must be other vehicles. Given ultimately financial fair play is due to conscious decisions being made by club owners, then why can't the EFL and the Premier League have within their terms and conditions that if you do cheat FFP, then it does come down to the personal, the personal decisions made by club owners, and therefore there is some form of fine system embedded into football for that. But the reason why that doesn't take place is, well, who makes up the rules for the EFL and the Premier League? And it's club owners. So turkeys, Christmas, etc. I can understand that viewpoint. The opposite viewpoint is, has there ever been any precedent set for this? And we go back to the Carlos Tevez case. Sheffield United were relegated due to West Ham having third-party registration of one of their players, and that did result in a settlement. So Sheffield United did go through the legal route, although it was an out-of-court settlement. Derby County didn't. Doesn't mean that one's right and one's wrong. It means that two sets of directors came to different conclusions.
Yeah, thank you for that, Kieran, for putting me straight on that. I shall go back to just despising him, as I did 10 minutes ago. The UK and Republic of Ireland football associations have abandoned their plans to bid for the 2030 World Cup, despite the fact, I believe it was in the Tory party manifesto, wasn't it, that they would be a bid for the 2030 World Cup?
Yes. I think this is, for once, the football associations have read the room. The FA, English football is not that popular, and as a country, we're not necessarily as popular as we would like to think. Just take a look at Eurovision every year. As we come a credible 27th, and there is politics involved, and there are potentially going to be some big players for the 2030 World Cup. FIFA is still a very political organisation. Now, I think the way that the decision is going to be made is that instead of it being the World Cup being awarded by a committee, it looks as if, and I may be wrong on this, it looks as if every country in FIFA is now going to have one vote. So you might say, well, that's more democratic. But then you start to look at FIFA politics, and you've got the confederations, which represent South America, Africa, Asia, and so on. They tend to vote en bloc because there's normally some form of political persuasion. So I'm not convinced that the English FA would necessarily even be able to persuade UEFA to have the World Cup in 2030 in the UK and Ireland, and therefore they've decided to say, well, we'll just walk away. There's a case for it taking place in Uruguay because it's the centenary competition, and I think that would be there'd be a romantic view for that. Given that it's been held in Germany more than once, it's been held in Mexico. Well, it's been in Mexico wholly or partially 3 times, the US more than once, and so on. Yeah. To go back to Uruguay, I think would be quite good. Why then do we think that UEFA are likely to vote for the UK and the Republic of Ireland in 2028? It comes down to money.
Yeah.
We've got big stadiums. We know that every single ticket will sell out practically instantly because this is a football-mad country. Combining it with Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland and Republican Ireland as well, that is sort of spreading the good news, and you can see the benefits there. If the individual, the fans of those countries say that's fantastic, we're guaranteed to see our clubs or our countries play. I don't think that is going to be the case. I think every country will have to qualify, but the good thing is that it's likely to be now 32 teams contesting the tournament in 2028. The 2024 tournament is going to take place in Germany, again, a country where every ticket's going to sell out. UEFA need cash. So the second favourite, my understanding, is Turkey. And I don't think it's necessarily got the ability to, it's a fantastic destination. But is it going to generate the same amount of money as quickly as the UK and the Republic of Ireland in terms of the number of individual stadiums for a 32-team tournament? I think that might be more of a challenge.
Yeah. Talking of politics, I don't know if you saw the final of AFCON, but my God, Infantino was front and centre, wasn't he? Very, very visible. And also, I have to say, again, apologies to producer guy for talking about football, but as so far as the moment of the season for Mane's winning penalty was just astonishing. And also, talking of ticket sales, Kieran, I believe you have some quite good news about the ticket sales for our first ever live Price of Football podcast.
Yes, the Price of Football live taking place at Plough Lane. So again, for football romantics such as me and you, it'd be a fantastic place for us to start our journey and potentially end it as well. In terms of live gigs, we've not quite worked out what we're going to say, but we'll get there. Have faith. Tickets went on sale on Monday morning at 10 a.m. and we've sold more than half the venue out already in the first 48 hours. So thank you for everybody that's bought a ticket. We're genuinely touched. We will be doing our damnedest to put on a good show, a memorable show for you. And as we said on the Monday podcast, our friends in Rochdale had said, any chance of coming up and doing a benefit gig for us? I'm in the middle of teaching. It's part of term at present, so it will be a bit of a struggle for me. You've got commitments as well, so we can't manage it by the end of March. And people say, well, why Rochdale and why a benefit gig? Rochdale is trying to remain a fan-owned football club, and there have been some people who tried to take over the club last year who are unhappy with that. They didn't make a lot of progress. We will be cautious as to what we say about them. I think you can probably understand from the tone of my voice what I think of them, and it's not very positive. Rochdale should be a fan-owned club if that's the way that the fans want, but the legal challenges are going to be very expensive. They're trying to raise a fighting fund of £130,000. It's a lot of money, and it's an unnecessary waste of money, in my view. But that's the nature, unfortunately, of some of the people who claim to have the interest of football at heart.
Yeah, and I think we probably will get to Rochdale at some stage. Producer Guy, who's thoroughly enjoying his newfound role as showbiz entrepreneur, is in discussion with various clubs across the country about coming to them to do a live pod. So unless this first one's a complete disaster, Kieran, which it won't be, and we have been working on the format, don't we? We have. So hopefully we'll get to see you before the end of the year. A final news story, Kieran, is the one I think with the potential to annoy an awful lot of people in one particular part of Spain, especially some of those people that don't consider they're in Spain even. Some newspapers in Spain are claiming that Barcelona are about to strike a huge deal with Spotify that will include attaching the Spotify name to the Nou Camp. All I can say is good luck with that, lads, because there will be massive opposition, won't there, from Barcelona fans, I would have thought.
How many Newcastle fans ever used to refer to St James's
Absolutely.
Park as the Mike Ashley Arena, whatever it was called, Sports Direct nonsense? This deal is being spoken of being worth £237 million. Yeah, we were discussing Barcelona's finances in a recent show and saying the club has to try to both cut costs and raise revenues. As part of the deal, if the stories are true, its name will become the Camp Nou Spotify. I think the number of people who are likely to use that, as you rightly said, Kevin, is going to be very, very small. If I go to a cricket match in South London, I go to the Oval, not the Kia Oval. I think this could be a bit of a disaster from Spotify's point of view. I don't think Neil Young will be attending or playing any concerts there, by the way. Following recent issues, he's withdrawn his music from Spotify. Personally, I think that Spotify ought to be giving that £237 million to artists compared to the absolute pittance that they pay them at present.
Yeah, I had to explain to a young friend recently that it wasn't Keir Starmer that was sponsoring the Oval. And then I couldn't, for the life of me, I couldn't work out. I couldn't remember who Kia actually were. All I could think was Kia Ora, and I thought, well, it can't be a 70s and 80s brand of orange juice can't be sponsoring the Oval. So that I couldn't actually give him the answer, but all I could tell him is it wasn't Keir Starmer. And yet the Spotify thing is interesting, Kieran, because at the moment, big news stories last week with Prince Harry staying on the platform with his pods, etc. But it's not exactly a toxic brand, but it's certainly not a popular brand around the world. So it seems strange that Barcelona really haven't read the room by launching a deal with Spotify right at this moment.
Blinded by the check, Kevin. Yeah, we've said it so often. Right, okay. And remember Daniel Ek, the Spotify owner, 6 months ago, he was trying to buy Arsenal. So again, Barcelona fans will be going, hold on. Where is your genuine interest in football? Because if it's with Arsenal, then fine. But don't go and say, oh, we've just been rebuffed by Arsenal in terms of some form of relationship, in terms of ownership. So therefore, you're going to rock up at our place. So I think they're not enamouring themselves at present. Spotify.
Now, last week, as you may recall, we had a fascinating interview about the economics of schools football. And this week, by complete contrast, it's the Premier League we're looking at. And Kieran had a chat with Tom Denby, who's the finance head of Norwich City. Roses are red, violets are blue. Don't let a wild pube wreck you. Valentine's Day is just round the corner, and our sponsors and old friends Manscaped are here for you with the best tools to get your balls ready for the special occasion. I still think Ali may prefer a meal. This Valentine's Day, it's time to join the 4 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped, the leaders in below-the-waist grooming, with our exclusive offer. Go to manscaped.com and use code PRICEOFFOOTBALL for 20% off plus free shipping.
The Performance Package 4.0 comes equipped with the best tools needed when freshening up for a night on the town. Inside, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0. Its advanced skin-safe technology reduces cuts and nicks on your delicate nuts. It also comes equipped with a 4000K LED spotlight that's bright enough to shine a light to your true love this year. The Performance Package 4.0 also includes the Weed Whacker, a nose and ear hair trimmer to whack off the worst of all your weeds, and 2 free gifts.
So get 20% off and free shipping with the code PRICEOFFOOTBALL at manscaped.com. That's 20% off when you're taking 100% off your balls with free shipping at manscaped.com and use code PRICEOFFOOTBALL. Help tame that love jungle you have in your pants with Manscaped.
First of all, Tom, thanks so much for coming on The Price of Football. How are you all keeping at Norwich?
Yeah, keeping very, very well. It's been a good few weeks results-wise, so we're really excited for the game tomorrow. 4 wins out of 5, so definitely looking forward to the game tomorrow against Palace.
Oh, yeah. Well, this is why Kevin's not here, you see. He might have been a bit feisty.
Okay.
Playing Palace, and you're not coming down to Brighton for a few weeks, but hopefully, might in bed come and say hello when you pop down. I mean, for people who aren't familiar with the role of finance in a football club, what exactly is your role, and how different would you say it is to being a finance director, financial controller at another industry?
Yeah, so my role is, I'm head of finance at Norwich, so my role is sort of oversee the day-to-day function of the accounts and finance team, more geared to around sort of cash flow management and executive board reporting, making sure the exec team here have the best tools possible across, varying scenarios of where the team could be next year or in 3 years' time. That's what we're all geared up to do on a monthly basis. In terms of comparing it to other roles, so I actually was a financial controller previously at an oil and gas company. A lot of the role is the same. Finance is finance. I guess on here, I had a real swap between profit to cash. So my old role, is heavily geared around profitability. There's dividends to pay shareholders. Whereas here, it's more sustainability, not profitability. So that was a big switch for me. From as you'll know, a swap from sort of a P&L driven business to a really cash flow driven business. So it's all things here. Cash is king, as they say.
Absolutely, and this is something we've been trying to preach, because when club accounts come out, and they're all dripping out from a variety of clubs at present, there is an obsession with profit and revenue, and reality is cash, because you've got to be able to pay this month's wage bill and this month's overheads. Absolutely. Would you say, from your experience, is it necessary to be a football fan to work in the finance part of a football club?
I would say yes, in my opinion. You might get others to disagree. I don't personally have anyone in the finance team here, or anyone that I know of here, that's not a huge football fan. I think working football, you need to be 100 miles an hour. I think you need that drive to love football and to get really stuck into it. There's a lot of hours. We all put in big shifts here, and I think if you don't love football, I think you'd struggle to have that ambition. So I do think it is really key. When we recruit, we make sure that that's top of the list is a passion for football, and a passion for the club also helps. So yeah, definitely key.
Cool. And we've just come out of what is, certainly from the media's point of view, one of the busiest times of year in the form of the transfer window. Is that the same for you guys, or is it sort of fairly full on all 12 months of the year?
It is full on all 12 months of the year. It really is. And it never stops in finance. I think especially here where being a self-funded football club, I think finance is at the forefront of everything that we do. So it is full on. I think in the transfer window, I like to do a lot of the work before the transfer window. So December's quite busy, making sure that we've got those forecast business plans, like I said, throughout the years of all the scenarios, whether we're up, down, all that sort of stuff ready for review, so that when we actually come into the transfer window, the execs and Stuart Webber and the management team have all the financial information available to make those quick fire decisions you need in the transfer window. Everything's done at a blink of an eye, and no one has time to wait for finance. So that's all done pre. So December's a busy month, but generally speaking, all round is quite full on.
Cool. Yeah. And you mentioned a little bit earlier that Norwich is a self-funded, sustainable model. You presumably create budgets on the basis of expected levels of broadcast income, commercial income, match day income, and so on. How does that start? From if you are presumably you are planning already for 22, 23. Without being too rude, have you prepared two budgets or more budgets, given that there must be a variety of scenarios that could arise?
Yeah, no, of course. I think you have to be sensible, and that is that there's, when you're a promoted club, there is a solid to fair chance that you could go down. So there will be multiple budgets. I think how we approach this is we stock quite a large finance team. I think compared to other football clubs, I think that's how we first approach it. I think with a self-funded model, I don't think there's no plan B, and there's no owner-led checks coming in. We have to be sustainable. So we have to stock the finance team to do that.
We've just come out, well, we hope we've just come out of the pandemic. What were the major implications from your point of view, especially when you went into it and not knowing what the future was going to be? How did you address the challenges that were brought by COVID from a finance perspective at Norwich City?
I guess it's tough. It feels so long ago now, the start, but I think if you remember back, we were in the Premier League in 1920 when the season was halted, and I think there was a lot of talk around the season being null and void, and we just really swapped to all hands on deck. We really had to get everyone involved in making sure that every scenario was planned as best as possible, which required so much time and effort through the team. Just looking at every sort of avenue, really. And trying to plan for that. But I think obviously COVID was so difficult with obviously no fans. Norwich typically quite rely on club controlled income. That's a large part of our revenue. So match day sales, tickets, people turning up, hospitality. That in catering, obviously we have an owner who is a well-known chef. So the catering side of his business is massive at the club, and obviously with no one here, there's no money to be made. So it was huge, and it just required some real sort of like home truths of looking at how poor the numbers could be, and then trying to get through that. I think we made a couple of player sales around that time to really sort of like keep the club going and still be competitive. We obviously sold Ben Godfrey to Everton and Jamal Lewis to Newcastle at that period, and then we went on and won the championship with a club record number of points of 97 points. So a couple of player sales at key moments really helped us through that difficult time.
And do you think for a club like Norwich, fans don't necessarily like it, but having that development model in terms of identifying talent, bringing it through the ranks, and then moving on to sell players, effectively, would you say that is your fourth income stream along with matchday broadcast and commercial, or is it because of the very volatile nature of player sales that you can't really budget for something of that nature?
No, I mean, it is important. I think you're right looking at those sort of like income streams. And the one that obviously we do not rely on at all in any way, shape or form is owner-led investment. So we have to swap to player sales. I think the strategy of this football club has been for a number of years to invest heavily in the academy and the young players. So that one, they'll hopefully they'll be good players and deliver on the pitch success, which we've seen in the last few years. But at some point, they will obviously have a resaleable value, which will help the club be sustainable. This club has made £150 million profit on player sales in the last 7 years, which is obviously a lot of money and so crucial to the way that we work. I think we have the two highest profit on player sales in championship history, being 2021 and 17-18. 17-18, I think, was James Maddison, and 2021 was obviously Ben Godfrey, as I've just said, along with Jamal Lewis. So, yeah, it is absolutely crucial. You can't budget for it, like you say, because you don't know the transfer market, but we can make sure that the infrastructure is being spent. We're continuing to invest in the academy, and then hopefully that conveyor belt of young players continues. And some of the players that have come through this football club over the last few years have been, absolutely incredible. So,
yep. In terms of fan engagement, and it's a horrible word, monetization, and fans don't like. I don't think people in the football industry necessarily like it. So we're now coming into a period of quite high inflation. Is that impacting on the ability to sell merchandise? Are catering receipts managing to hold up? Given that prices are rising and fans are finding things are a bit tighter themselves. I believe so. I believe they will hold up. I mean, cost of living is going up. I mean,
I actually checked my energy renewal yesterday. I'm glad I was sitting down, is all I could say. As at least double. And we've got rising cost of livings and increased employees' national insurance and employees' national insurance, and I know Bank of England's rates just gone up. So it is going up. I think what I would say about what you've said about fans, but being worried, I think it just comes down to the fact you just can't underestimate how passionate the fans are of Norwich City Football Club. I think they will always be here for the club, and I think fans in general are really, really respectful and appreciative of the model that we're operating in. Being self-funded, this revenue is important, and I think the fans will continue to back the club. The club is a community asset. I think Norwich has some of the best fan engagement in the Premier League. I think that's a fact with season ticket numbers and the way that we act with the community. And I think ultimately they will still turn up in their thousands Championship with rising living costs or not, because they love the football club, and I don't see that personally changing.
Yeah, I mean, I've been to Norwich as an away fan on many an occasion, and that closeness, I think, between the club and the fan base is very evident. Yeah. Which you don't necessarily see elsewhere. There appears to be an expectation that the club has to deliver on certain other things, whereas Norwich, it's the fact that we're all part of Norwich together, which is very commendable. I mean, just looking forward to next season, we've got the World Cup taking place in November and December. What impact is that having on your planning? Because you're going to have to go for a month without football. Is that already a concern for you at Norwich?
Yeah, it is and it isn't. It is from a time and a back end point of view. We're actually now just starting that journey onto budgeting for next season. Well, obviously, we'll have a Premier League and Championships scenario, and I think the bit for the World Cup, which is we have to try and stress to people, is obviously it's unprecedented. We've never, football's pretty consistent in terms of how the fixtures fall. I know the Premier League and the Championship are different, but year on year, we've perhaps got quite a lot of historical data to rely on, football season to football season. So we're now rolling into these new budgets, and Excel probably better than anyone. I've seen your spreadsheets, Kieran, but everything behind the scenes is going to have to change to allow for that World Cup. The way that we phase and draw down revenue is on a sort of by game basis, which will all have to be adjusted. But financially, in terms of what it will cost the club, I don't think it will be that much, to be honest. I think there might be a period where a mini pre-season might be demanded, whether some players have not played competitive football for a number of weeks, either if they're not at the tournament or their team was knocked out early. I think we're back playing Premier League football on Boxing Day, with the final sort of on the 16th, I think. So there could be a break. So there will obviously be costs associated with that. But I think in terms of the revenue generating areas, it's still over the Christmas period. I don't see the World Cup being an issue. Hopefully, I think it will actually bring more people out into the city to watch the games, which could increase footfall at stores and that sort of things, and hopefully be a big boost to hospitality over Christmas. I'm trying to look at the World Cup as an actual positive for Norwich. So have to see how it goes, but.
Brilliant. And just to tie things up, I get asked by a lot of people, how do you get into the world of football finance? I say, well, I'm actually still a teacher. I'm a complete fraud. As somebody who is there, who is involved on a day-to-day basis, could you offer people any tips as to what you think the industry is looking for in terms of somebody that wants to move into the football world?
Passion, I think, it's number one. Passion for football. I think that's probably what got me the job, to be honest. When I turned up for an interview, I just think, I've always been in finance, but always had a huge passion for football. And I just think that obviously came across. And I think we're actually, now looking for new members of the team. And I think that what gets you over the line. I don't think we have time for people that don't share the passion for football. So that would be my main tip, is that you really need to have a desire to be in the industry. So above everything, above, technical ability, I think we could have, the best accountant to walk through the door, but if they don't love football and then they're not prepared to really approach the industry head on, then I think they'll struggle.
Okay. Terrific. Well, we're recording this on Tuesday, so this is before you play Crystal Palace. I will be cheering you on because I'm a magnanimous guy against Palace. And had Kevin been doing the interview, I suspect he wouldn't have been as magnanimous. But I'm just a big-hearted guy. So all the best for you, and I'm hoping that Budget A will be in place for next season, as opposed to Budget EFL or whatever you call it.
I hope so.
And have a fantastic season. And thanks so much for giving up your time and expertise. I really appreciate it.
No, it's my pleasure. Thanks for having me on, and all the best for the future.
I thought that was really interesting. I particularly like the comparison. They tried to run the club as though it was a charity along those grounds, and that the money is generated by the club, is used by the club, and doesn't go into the pockets of owners.
Yeah, and I thought Tom was a fascinating person to talk to. His passion for the job really came through, but also he was honest enough to say we don't have the benefit of ultra high net worth individuals running the club. We therefore aim to be sustainable. And the whole aim is that if we have a successful year, and you see over the last 7 years, Norwich City have generated £150 million from player sales. That money gets ploughed into the club or improving sort of facilities and engagement with fans, because Carrow Road is part of the fabric of Norwich as a city, and they want the city to be as proud of the club as the club wants to be proud of the city. And it's a very, very positive circular relationship.
Yeah, it's probably for the best that I wasn't available to do the interview, Kieran, because I'm not sure how Tom would have reacted to my suggestion for Norwich to make money. They could make a fortune. All they've got to do is charge a £5 to show that Delia Smith mic drop at halftime. Because I'd be spending £100. I can't get enough of that. In moments of stress, I turn to Sibelius and Foray and Delia. Basically, I just can't get enough of Delia. I don't know. She may have put out. All I'm suggesting, there may have been an extra glass of wine in the risotto. I don't know, but if you haven't seen it, it's one of the reasons we love football. Those moments like that, Delia on the pitch exhorting the fans to make more noise, and then doing the mic drop at the end is brilliant. Thank you for listening, everybody. If you'd like to make a small contribution to our always free to air podcast, then please go to patreon.com/priceoffootball. That would be very kind of you. If you'd like a question for our Monday Questions pod, then please email questions@priceoffootball.com. There are still only a few tickets left for our first ever live gig, so please head for where do they have to head for that? Now, our Twitter. It's
Eventbrite.
It's on our pod page, isn't it, or whatever? Yeah. And while you're doing that, I shall leave you in the capable hands of Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
Well, as always, thanks so much for engaging with us through emails, through Twitter, which is always a good way of finding both myself and Kevin. We do take on board all of your comments, and we do appreciate that you seem to like the show as well. If you want to support us through Patreon, it's as little as £1 a month, and for that you get us our eternal thanks, of course. But if you just want to give us some good karma, and we genuinely do not know how this works, but going on to the Apple app or the Spotify app, I feel such a hypocrite now.
It was halfway. I'm not good with the technical stuff, but halfway through that Barcelona Spotify question, I'm thinking, hang on, we've got an issue here, haven't we?
Yes. But if you want to do that and give us a review and give us 5 stars, it helps. It helps in the algorithms. It helps in the league tables, and we're punching above our weight, I think it's fair to say at present. It doesn't matter what you say in the comments. If you want to give a written review, you can say you'd rather have the show presented by Al Pacino and the Swedish chef from The Muppets. And that'll be some good noises. There'll be some good grunting from both parties there. And it wouldn't make a blind bit of difference to myself and Kevin. Our egos can cope with that.
I love that chef. He's probably my favourite chef. I've met a lot of chefs, but he's the one I'd like to meet most. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.